I'm not actually sure what I'm going to do in today's video, which is almost unheard of because I've normally planned exactly what I'm going to do. But I've got some Strelitzia here in the studio. You might have already seen a couple of designs on the channel where I've used the Strelitzia, but I've still got 3 left. And you might be wondering, why have I picked a pink container when the Strelitzias are predominantly orange and blue? But what I noticed when I was looking at colour combinations this morning is the throat cheer of the Strelitzia head has got a really lovely cerise pink. So I thought, for a change, rather than teaming them up with some blue, I'm still going to use the blue, I'm also going to introduce a cerise colour. And that works so well, I think, with that throat or the neck there of the bird of paradise or the Strelitzia, or you might even know it as the crane flower. And then I thought it's going to look really nice in this pinky colour container. Then I pondered over the style that I was going to do, because I think the Strelitzia is a modern and more contemporary flower, and it shouldn't be hidden in amongst lots of other flowers. You pay a lot of money for it. Here in the UK, that would retail in a shop for about £10 per head. And I don't really want to cover that in lots of flowers and lose the shape of that magnificent head. So I think I'm going to do a sort of modern version of a crescent, following the shape of my container. I've got some Strelitzia, roses and Agapanthus, and rather than doing a traditional crescent-shaped arrangement, which I've done loads of on the channel, particularly using vintage containers and wire netting, I'm going to do a more modern version, really emphasising the beautiful shape of these Strelitzia flowers. Now what I'm going to do is just try and work out which side of the arrangement this head suits best, and I think that's going to work quite well, maybe a little bit shorter. So in my container I have half a block of floral foam, so I've cut it lengthways, and that means it fits nicely into my container. And I've just used 2 pieces of the floral tape to hold it into place, because these flowers are heavy. They're going to be weighty, they're going to pull my foam around, and if I'm not careful it's going to tip out of the foam itself. So what I'm going to do is go slightly higher and almost follow the shape of the crescent. Now I'm going to move this one at more of an angle. So I've got a little bit of a crescent. Might not be evident yet what shape I'm going with, but hopefully as I add more flowers the shape will become a little bit more familiar. And I think we're going to go out there at the side. I have a small gap between these flowers, a bigger gap between the bottom flower and this side, and then a slightly smaller gap between this one here. And that's what we call a 3/5/8 proportion. And 3/5/8 is a different way of arranging rather than the traditional 1/3 and 2/3. You might not appreciate this style because if you've been taught basic floral design at your college or evening class or wherever you go to learn floral design, you might not yet be able to understand why I'm not balancing off the 2 flowers on either side. And then I can add in some pieces of dogwood. Now this one is Autumn Breeze. It's an absolutely gorgeous colour, and I thought it worked so well alongside the Strelitzia. It's almost like a reddish flame, and I'm doing quite well at the moment because the arrangement is facing you and I'm working at the back. So let's get another piece up on the opposite side. So this is the taller part of the arrangement. Remember, when you've got a design that's quite tall, you need to use the whole of the foam, front and back, otherwise the design is going to tip forward and it will fall out of the container. And I think I'm probably going to have to talk to you through the middle, otherwise I'm going to completely disappear behind the arrangement. Now what I'm going to do with the Agapanthus is look for one that's got the smallest head. And I like this one. It's maybe not the smallest head, but there is a slight curve to the stem, and that is going to work really nicely on this side over here. So I've now turned it round so that it's facing me, and what I'm going to do is stagger the blue from one side to the other, but to keep the proportions working quite well. But ideally the smaller head in this style of arrangement needs to be towards the top. Now I'm not sure if you can hear in the background, but I don't know what's going on with the weather today. I've got torrential rain and wind out there. It's not very good at all. So the first 3 placements in with the Amaranthus, again I've got this triangle forming in between the flowers, and I've placed them so I'm not blocking the view of any of the Strelitzia. I don't want to pay all that money for them and then hide them. And then with the remaining Agapanthus, I'm going to bring them quite low down on the foam. This is going to help cover some of the foam and to bring that lovely colour blue right the way down to the bottom. I'm going to place 2 together in a group because it's a more modern style and I don't want to spread them out equally on both sides of a centre line. When you've got a more modern style of arrangement like this, we don't need to worry about having flowers in the centre. Off centre and grouped together is going to work really well. And then on the opposite side, I'm going to use some of the gyp. This is the dyed pink gyp. It's not something I use a great deal of, but we have used it this week here with lessons, and what it does do really well in this style of arrangement is cover the foam. So it's going to help cover my mechanics, and it brings a nice little texture down to the bottom. So I'll get that in a cluster. This is also going to hide that tape that I've got at the front of my container, because we obviously don't want to see that because it's a mechanic and that's part of the design that you need to hide. And I haven't mentioned for a long time, but the camera angle is slightly higher than the position I'm working at. So you might be able to see a little bit more of the tape than I can because I'm looking down on it. So just bear that in mind before you go commenting that you can see all my mechanics. Now, if you haven't been to the channel before, then welcome. My name is Sharon. There's a whole host of videos on here, traditional and modern. There's videos using foam and no foam, so there's lots of design ideas that you can learn from. And before I add any more to the bottom, I'm going to start now with this gorgeous cerise rose. Now this one, if my memory serves me well, is called Takasi, and Takasi comes in quite a few different colours. And what I'm going to do is just peek it out from behind the Strelitzia. As this opens, it slightly softens in colour and the centre is a paler pink. But this beautiful cerise really blends in nicely with the blue. My blue is definitely a pinky blue rather than a greeny blue. So it's going to blend beautifully with my container and pick up on the pinks of that Strelitzia. And if I show you this one, you can see how the colour is lighter in the centre. It's a really lovely rose to work with. So I'm just going to bring that colour from the top down to the bottom so that we're bringing that colour cerise, that really nice bright vibrant colour, down towards the bottom. And I'm not going to do that traditional spacing where the gap is the same because this is more of a modern design. I want to give a bigger distance between 2 of the sets of flowers. And then in between this group here, I'm going to place a cerise rose right down low on top of the foam. That's going to help give contrast between what is essentially 2 fussy materials, and that's going to give me recession and depth and draw your eye down into the bottom. If we look at it from the side, you can see I've used all of the foam. I've brought flowers from front to back, and that's what's important in creating depth within your arrangement and that 3-dimensional effect. Now I have removed off quite a few of the foliage from the roses because it's a modern design. I want the lines of the flower stems to be a bit more visible than maybe they would on a traditional arrangement. And then I'm thinking that another flower, that cerise colour, needs to be in this position here. And then if your eye follows down from one side to the other, you've got that natural curve created by the placement of the flowers. And I'm just contemplating, do I need another cerise rose down at the base? I'm not sure yet. I'm going to keep adding, and if necessary, I'll add one in at the end. So we've got this obvious gap in the middle, so curve down and up, repeating the shape of my container, which is one of the elements and principles of design. If you've learned the principles, you'll know that you should repeat shapes, textures, patterns and colour in a floral design because it makes a really cohesive arrangement. And if you're not sure about the elements and principles of design, you can follow a link in the description box which gives you a free downloadable document which gives you a basic understanding of the elements and principles of design. If you want to pay for a more comprehensive version, then follow the link to the shop on the website and you can buy a downloadable document either on the care and conditioning of flowers or for the principles and elements of design. It's really going to help you understand how to arrange flowers. So behind the flowers, I'm going to add a little bit of this soft, really delightful greenery. Now I'm going to put the name up on the screen because I've forgotten what it's called, and I forgot it in the last video as well. I know it's got something myrtus, but I can't remember the first part, but don't hold it against me. I'll probably remember it when I finish filming. So I don't want to block the shape of the Strelitzia, but I do need to give the arrangement a bit of density. If I don't add anything towards the back, the design is almost going to become transparent and see-through, but I don't want to overfill and overstuff because then my statement flowers are going to be completely lost. And then with the shorter pieces I've got, we'll just bring them through and round towards the front, just so that we've got a link between what's on the top and what's on the bottom. And that again is repetition. Now with the larger Monstera leaves, these ones are quite young and they've not yet got the holes in the centre. So as they mature, they look a little bit more like this. I'm going to add these in at the side to create some width, but without losing that crescent shape of the arrangement. So these are going to be angled out on the side. We're going to have 2 on one side and 1 on the other side. And if you are used to seeing traditional floral designs where everything matches on both sides, you're probably not going to like this look. But what we're going to do is get 2 of them on one side and we're going to balance it off with 1 on this side here. What I don't want to do is what I've done there and have these like those 2 wings that I talk about all the time. So I'm going to raise this one a little higher in the arrangement, trying not to copy exactly what's on this side here because I don't want to make that matching shape, and I can just move that one a little further forward and hopefully I can get it in that gap there. So what I've done there is I've just angled it slightly different so they're not matching perfectly on either side. And now all I really need to do is think about covering my floral foam here and adding a little bit of extra greenery in amongst the flowers that are at the front to cover all my floral foam. And to fill the gaps there at the bottom, I'm going to use a greenery called Strelitzia. You can buy this from Florist Supplies, or you might be lucky enough to have it growing in the garden. And I've chosen this one because it's quite a funky green. It's almost like a citrusy green. It's quite bright and it's a contrast against the darker green there of the Monstera leaves. So I get a nice contrast in the colour by adding some alongside the gyp, and underneath the gyp we're going to create some depth and of course help to cover the floral foam and the tape there that I've got underneath. A few little pieces just to tuck in, and as I'm finishing off the arrangement, so if you're not already subscribed, then please do so. Hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new tutorial. Stay to the end of the video because you'll see lots of photos of the finished piece and close-ups of the individual flowers. And if you want to know any of the flower names or varieties that I've used, then you can look in the description box because there's a list there of everything I've used. So I don't think that turned out too badly, considering I didn't have a plan in my mind before we started. A really vibrant colour combination that's been inspired by the colour of the Strelitzia there at the top. The crescent shape is quite a traditional design, but this time I've done it in a more modern style, and I hope you like that one. So thanks very much for watching. I look forward to seeing you for the next tutorial. See you soon. Bye for now.